Welcome to Chapter 2 of the Post-Web audio documentary. In Chapter 1, we introduce the idea of the disappearing web, how through the process of the convergence of chains, the web becomes thinner as we delegate more and more of the consumer internet to agents who have little need for search engines, websites, and apps. We call this new paradigm the post-web. We believe it represents a shift from the attention economy to the intention economy and promises to fix some of the fundamental issues with the internet, issues that Web3 alone couldn't. From platform monopolies to misinformation, biases and suboptimal outcomes for users and brands. In this chapter, we're going to go beyond the hype and ask the fundamental questions. What happens when crypto and AI combine? And also deep dive into the post-web, its characteristics and how we get there, as well as what could go wrong when taken to its extremes. And perhaps most importantly, we'll provide actionable advice for founders on how to prepare for an increasingly agent-optimized internet. Convergence. The topic of convergence is not new to me or my firm, Outlier Ventures, the accelerator I founded a decade ago. In fact, the convergence of AI and blockchains is something we've been theorizing about from as early as 2016, publishing several papers and making the industry's first decentralized AI investment into what was then an early-stage startup that is now a $3 billion network called ASI, or the Artificial Super Intelligence Alliance. We have consistently advocated to not look at blockchains in isolation, but rather for them to be understood in the context of how they interact with the wider web and its other emergent technologies. And it was at these points of convergence we believe they were most interesting. By 2024, this idea has now gone prime time, and its subsequent categories of DAI and Deepin have been flooded with venture capital, leading to hundreds of new startups globally. We believe what is driving the process of convergence is in fact a combination of push and pull dynamics, taking us towards the inevitability of a post-web. But before we go there, we believe to understand the character of the post-web, you need to go back to the early 2000s to Tim Berners-Lee, the creator of the web, and his original vision for Web3, and the emerging structural problems with the internet it was supposed to fix. Whilst both are ultimately based on user sovereignty, Tim Berners-Lee's original vision for a Web3 aspired to create an interconnected, intelligent web where data could be linked meaningfully, enabling machines to better interpret users' needs through something he also referred to as the semantic web.
The web of data, semantic web, same thing, that frustration that I can't pull that data and pull other data and then connect them and see, oh, when do these publications chronologically fit in with these events? Or where are all my friends compared to all the places I like to drink coffee? Where's the nearest coffee place to a friend that I want to take out to lunch? That's taking information which is out there in a form that can be reused and looked at from a different point of view.
His vision prioritized user empowerment and data sovereignty over platforms, challenging Web 2's increasing centralization. As Al Morris of Koi puts it,
when Tim Berners-Lee was coming up with this stuff, he imagined the semantic web as a top-down hierarchy where someone would run some kind of an indexer like Google that would assign the semantic linkings of everything and then create the value hierarchy. And I think what he didn't foresee is the advancements of computing that led to us all having supercomputers in our home. So I have on my desk right now 3 devices that are stronger than anything that existed when he wrote about the semantic web. And so that allows me to have individual computing capacity, which means that my cryptographic keys can actually link all this information together, which is, I think, more what we've been talking about in the Web3 world for the last couple of years.
At the time, he proposed linking data through open standards, but his vision never really took off. Fast forward to today, and the internet's problems are even more pronounced and increasing in number. From platform monopolies to a lack of data privacy and security, misinformation and biases, it's safe to say the internet's model is feeling fundamentally broken, delivering suboptimal outcomes for everyone but a small handful of companies and their shareholders. As Nick Almond, CEO of Factory Labs, puts it,
the current structure of the web is suboptimal for civilization.
And according to Joe Lubin, CEO of Consensus and co-founder of Ethereum,
we need a total re-architecting of the information infrastructure on the planet.
In parallel, Web3 as we know it promised to solve these same issues, only this time bottom-up through decentralization and distributed technologies like blockchains. As Butian Lee, co-founder of Blockless, puts it,
we're essentially reinventing a paradigm for the more decentralized version of the web.
But a decade on, it too has failed to live up to its promise, and the large majority of users today still live, work, and play in Web 2 and its attention economy. So why has no one been able to fix the internet's problems? And more specifically, why has Web 3 as we know it failed to deliver despite its clear potential? Aaron McDonald, co-founder of Futureverse, thinks blockchains themselves don't solve these issues.
We haven't been able to demonstrate to the world the real power of ownership. And it illustrates that point, which is like blockchains by themselves don't solve the semantic web problem.
To answer these questions, we need to come back to the idea that Web3's innovations of distributed ledger technology, smart contracts, tokens and DAOs can't exist in isolation. This revolution in new functionality and business model innovation still needs to be usable by the average person to be put into effect. The original assumption for many that blockchain technology alone could fulfill Web3's promise and fix the internet was overly optimistic. While decentralized systems are powerful, they introduce complexity and friction that only a small subset of users can manage effectively. This creates a chasm that limits adoption. As Tor Bear, co-founder of Stash, puts it,
it's not just friction. The user experience kind of sucks. You have to click on too many things. In the case of blockchain, signing with a wallet constantly, seeing all of these long strings of characters which are not human readable, that's like a UX issue.
And like any step change to the internet's functional capability, it needs an equivalent upgrade in usability. Usually, this is a centralizing force which bundles a set of technologies into a new platform. But this is fundamentally at odds with the decentralized nature of Web3, creating a set of compromises which break the paradigm. Fortuitously, in parallel, innovations in AI, such as LLMs and agents, mean there is now both a natural language interface to abstract the complexity of people interacting with blockchains and a way to easily execute on-chain actions. As Joe Lubin puts it,
the way we get to an intents-based world is by having solvers. So solvers are currently people in their basements, in their bedrooms, companies that do this sort of thing, that are taking requests, figuring out how to fulfill those requests, and getting that done. And there are ways to get that done so that it's pretty much guaranteed that the requester is not going to be harmed, and the transaction will proceed atomically and successfully. That's what these protocols are all about, just being able to ensure in a verifiable way that the machine is working. Once the human solvers figure out all the different kinds of patterns, then we can have agentic AIs in there doing a lot of that work effectively, very quickly, inexpensively.
It seems in reality Web3 is, and has always been, a back-end revolution that was never truly intended for direct human interaction. In this context, Web3 is a sleeping giant of functionality, tested by humans, waiting to be unlocked by machines. Distributed ledger technology is now finding its place within this narrative through its proven ability to incentivize creation, bootstrapping, and the maintenance of distributed networks of resources that promises a new equivalent layer for AI coordination. By integrating DLT with AI, it can go beyond LLMs that can just advise to AI with actual agency to fully represent and extend human personhood, to contract and perform deterministic economic activity in order to execute financial transactions on our behalf, all as a form of machine money. Leonard Dorlochter, co-founder of Peak, says,
when you think about the future of a machine economy, you need an open infrastructure where all of those machines, agents, humans can freely transact with each other. And you also need to be able to have different business logics for the different use cases, which are, in this case, deepens, to be able to compute on the same computer. And then you have all those users and machines that can compose themselves between the different use cases.
In aggregate, we propose that when DLT and AI are combined, they create a powerful flywheel of push and pull dynamics, which will catalyze adoption, bringing users, their consumption, and economic activity onto blockchains and into the post-web, creating entirely new possibilities as the internet organizes around users' intentions and away from mindlessly capturing and harvesting attention. Equally, it is also true, centralized AI operating in a purely Web3 paradigm, left unchecked, further exaggerates many of the internet's problems, from algorithmic biases and central control to the negative impact of bots with growing sophistication and capabilities. As Nick Ullman, CEO of Factory Labs, puts it,
I do think the classic equity structure creates basically a civilizational level principal agent problem, because essentially these companies have to legally maximize shareholder value, right? And actually what they're set up to extract from the world maximally. If you imagine the alternate system where we all use a token to query the decentralized GPT, if that token went down, it would get cheaper to use, right? So actually going up isn't necessarily a bad thing in that context, where going down is a bad thing always in the other context. And actually you would need to like modify your governance to do it. So I actually imagine this as a kind of like swarm of agents, a kind of federation of potentially even centralized entities, and a kind of democratic DAO type structure. I'm starting to imagine this as a kind of 3-layer system.
the arrival of generative AI and LLMs is not only raising important questions around data provenance, verifiability, and privacy, but more importantly, it is showing us that the journey towards artificial general intelligence requires a level of collaboration and economic coordination of data, resources, and compute, some are estimating exceeds that of World War II and the space race combined. As SoftBank's Masayoshi Son puts it,
what about the total Gen AI future? What is the value of the future? Is this a bubble today or not? Some critics, the most negative guy says, oh, this AGI, ASI, in 10 years, maybe only 5% is actually useful or replacing people's job, but 95% still the same, no change. It takes time. So I say, okay, let's accept the most negative critics' view. That is only 5% change, 95% unchanged. But what is that ASI investment required to take? I have predicted it will take 400 gigawatts of AI data centers power. 400 gigawatts. That's bigger than total US electricity. And it will require 200 million chip. The cumulative capex, $9 trillion. $9 trillion. How do you recoup? How do you recoup? It's too much investment for many people's view. I say it's still very reasonable capex. $9 trillion is not too big, maybe too small.
Where Web 1 allowed us to read, Web 2 write, and Web 3 own, in the post-web we can now delegate. The groundbreaking innovation of AI, with economic agency on DLT, means we can now trustlessly delegate work to agents simply by expressing intentions, technically known as intents, for them to go on to perform much of the consumer internet on our behalf, leaving us with the fun stuff. We propose by the time we reach what could be technically defined as the post-web, today's web will have nearly disappeared, with AI agents handling the majority of transactional activity over the internet. Based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, users will then be left to engage with the web only for purposeful and enriching experiences, leading to what we call the thin web, a residual part of the web reserved for these deeper and, where relevant, immersive interactions. Because AI, when designed to serve sovereignty, prioritizes users' true needs and aligns counterparties with their intentions for efficient, value-driven interactions with minimal extraction and rent-seeking. Bypassing interruptions, managing complexity, and actively avoiding attention-driven tactics. The death of search, interruptive advertising, a website and an app for everything, and consequently, app stores and their gatekeeping. Welcome to the intention economy. In contrast to the attention economy, in the intention economy, users will get exactly what they want for a better price. And those that can effectively serve their needs will have less value extracted from them in the process by today's intermediaries, creating a powerful flywheel that goes beyond ethical arguments of decentralization to hard economics and improved user experiences. The holy grail of better, cheaper, faster. In summary, we believe the consequence of convergence is the internet will increasingly take on fundamentally new characteristics, borrowing from the power and benefits of both DLT and AI, intent-based, deterministic yet adaptive, verifiable, and hyper-contextual. So let's break this down. Intent-based. We're already seeing some of the early potential of intent-based interactions and architectures in today's DeFi, where simple solvers are interpreting user intents and executing tasks on their behalf, serving as a precursor for how more complex and less bounded AI agents will operate in the future. Intent-based architectures will no longer require us to think about the workflow and set out the individual micro-tasks to reach desired outcomes. And with time, AI agents will get even better at interpreting and expressing user intents, as well as executing tasks as they learn and improve through powerful feedback loops, becoming increasingly predictive and autonomous. Deterministic yet adaptive. A core feature of the post-web will be its ability to be simultaneously deterministic and adaptive. The deterministic processes, unlocked through DLT and smart contract execution, will guarantee predictable, reliable, and precise outcomes. At the same time, AI will better sense, understand, and interpret the environment the users operate in to be adaptive and hyper-contextual. And both will be balanced out by optimistic mechanisms, assuming validity in most interactions or decisions, and only verifying when disputes or inconsistencies arise through a process similar to how optimistic rollups work today, validating on-chain transactions. This approach allows for greater efficiency while maintaining the balance between flexibility and certainty. Today, in Web 2, flexibility and personalization often come at the cost of certainty, as algorithms rely purely on probabilistic models, leading to unpredictable outcomes. This is a major barrier to LLMs gaining true agency to execute complex tasks and not just advise. In contrast, the probabilistic post-web AI and deterministic smart contract capabilities are married together at scale through optimistic assumptions. Verifiable. The post-web will be fundamentally verifiable, with every interaction having a degree of provenance, being transparent and traceable through decentralized ledgers such as blockchains and variations like decentralized acyclical graphs. But importantly, verifiability does not necessarily imply complete transparency. Privacy and information asymmetry are crucial aspects of the economy. In the post-web, privacy-enhancing technologies, otherwise known as PETs, will allow for private verifiability, ensuring privacy is preserved wherever necessary.
As Tor Bear, co-founder of Stash, puts it,
and at some point in the process, up to this point anyway, we've had to compromise somewhere. And usually what's getting compromised is privacy. If you come from the mindset that we've come from as builders, not just in the secret ecosystem, but everywhere that embraces decentralized confidential compute, privacy, it's a non-starter to say, we're just going to fix that later. Once the cat is out of the bag, once the toothpaste is out of the tube, you don't get to cram it back in. That's a level of control that you want to have. If we build on this public by default foundation for this AI convergence with Web3 and beyond, it's already building, not just building on sand, it's building a dystopia. So what we're hoping is that people start to take the privacy risks seriously in AI first, maybe because it's such a tangible use case today, but mostly because if we don't take it seriously now, by the time we do, it'll definitely be too late.
Balancing the trade-offs between the cost and benefits of different levels of privacy will depend on the context. This improvement in verifiability, however, enables trustless interactions without relying on centralized authorities, which is critical to unlocking the computable economy, something we'll discuss in later episodes. In contrast, in Web 2, the infrastructure just isn't designed for verifiability, as centralized platforms and intermediaries are the single arbiters of truth, making direct verification impossible and relying on implicit trust. In the post-web, verifiability becomes essential for users to trust AI agents with economic tasks and to prevent malicious behavior and make principal-agent conflicts visible. This inherent verifiability ensures every action by an AI is, when required, traceable and accountable, allowing users to confidently delegate tasks and collaborate agent to agent without fear of exploitation. Hyper-contextual. In the post-web, both the user experience and the resources used to deliver that experience will be hyper-contextual. UX, UI, and experience will be generated on the fly. Users will experience dynamic adjustments based on context, such as whether they're engaging alone or in a social setting, or on the move, or whether they prefer a minimalist or maximalist interaction. At the same time, the resources behind those experiences, whether hosted locally, at the edge, or in the cloud, including data, network, compute power, storage, or memory, will adjust and combine based on factors like performance and privacy requirements for the task at hand. These dimensions will seamlessly shift in response to the user's situation and preferences to make sure that every aspect of the interaction is optimized. Pathway to the post-web. Hopefully by now, you bought into the potential of the post-web and its powerful flywheel that would drive adoption. But how exactly will we get there? Well, we believe the post-web won't happen overnight. Instead, it will be a gradual process over the next decade that will become increasingly accelerated as its clear usability and economic benefits kick in. Where ChatGPT gave a vastly superior search and discovery experience, becoming the fastest growing web app ever, Convergence will have its equivalent breakthrough moments, pulling in attention, capital, and billions of users in the ways conventional dApps just couldn't.
Sam Altman tweeting that ChatGPT is now the 8th biggest website in the world, according to SimilarWeb.
It took Facebook 2 years to get to 1 million users. It took Instagram 2 years to get to 1 million users. It took Pinterest 5 months to get to 1 million users. It took Angry Birds 34 days to get to 1 million users. It took ChatGPT 5 days to get to 1 million users.
Whilst today's AI tools like chatbots, recommendation systems, and smart assistants dominate, helping users navigate and interact with websites more efficiently, the web remains primarily human-operated, with people still manually accessing web pages, apps, and online services to complete tasks. And where there is automation, AI in the beginning will primarily just try to mimic human behavior to navigate the web, as is, rather than fundamentally rewire it. However, increasingly, AI agents infused with Web3 capabilities will form agentic systems, will interact with us, each other, and the data distributed through the internet directly, bypassing today's web. Software ate the world, but agents will eat the web. As this new form of AI diffuses across the internet, it removes direct human interaction through the web, making space for agentic systems and more machine-to-machine interactions with increasing degrees of autonomy. In doing so, the internet and its infrastructure become increasingly optimized for agent activity. Human interaction with traditional web interfaces decreases as AI agents can fulfill many of our needs more efficiently and optimally. But we believe a form of the web will still persist, in part for more immersive, gaming, social, and shopping experiences. What you might still refer to as the metaverse or 3D web, albeit likely with a greater emphasis on augmented realities rather than entirely virtual worlds. As Mike Charalambous, co-founder of 3Dium, says,
and our thesis has always been that we live in a 3D world, and finally, the internet is catching up. We are experiencing, from early days, this evolution of the browsers, this evolution in brands' innovation appetite, and how content is evolving to meet new standards, to create new kind of experiences, emotions. We're also able to see how brands fade away if they're not able to leverage frontier technologies, such as computer vision, such as AI, such as blockchain, and how they're losing their competitive edge if they failed to go into this digital transformation cycle faster.
We believe much of this remaining web will be browser-based, with improved capabilities to stream interactive and increasingly intelligent experiences over the top of app stores, removing their extractive walled gardens and restrictions on crypto and its token economies, allowing digital property rights to finally go mainstream, where increasingly the user and their preferences serve as a real-time prompt, marking a shift away from mass media to on-the-fly, custom experiences just for you. Ilya Pulasukin, co-founder of Near Protocol, puts it,
now not websites, right? You'll have intelligent agents that are able to satisfy intent or provide context for your model to provide the right information. The front end itself is going to be generated on the fly on your phone, right? You don't need anyone to build anymore the apps, right? There's no apps anymore.
For these agents to operate effectively and in a sovereign capacity, the ability to gather and digest contextual information and establish the proof of users' personhood will be necessary factors to allow AI agents to deliver the final mile of personalized execution. In episode 3, we will discuss how personhood, alongside identity, reputation, and privacy, are critical in allowing users to empower agents to act in a more sovereign capacity. By the time we arrive at the post-web, AI and agentic systems have largely replaced the web for platforms, search, websites, and traditional applications. While the internet remains as fundamental infrastructure, the web, initially designed for human interactions, has been significantly reduced. AI systems now interact directly with data sources, APIs, and agent-based microservices over the internet, making the traditional web unnecessary for many applications. This shift will not only disrupt consumer-facing platforms, but also bring profound changes to the B2B and SaaS landscape, where agents as a service, or what we playfully call AaaS, can automate, optimize, and aggregate agents into intra- and inter-organizational DAOs to reshape businesses, their processes, and whole industries at scale. As Nick Ullman, CEO of Factory Labs, puts it,
the post-web, what might that look like? I think, yes, it's going to move into agentic moments, right? So it's going to agents talking to each other. So it's parts of the internet that only agents access. Intents as a framework, right? So we've started to exploring intent-like structures in Web3. And if you think about natural language prompts as kind of like natural language intents moving into like programmatic intents. So there's this kind of matchmaking negotiation layer through the agentic layer. I think more and more things are going to be abstracted to voice, natural language inputs, or like visual inputs.
the down low. We still believe for the time being, founders need to build with human users in mind. In the short term, founders should focus on leveraging AI's potential to augment UX, product operations and analytics, with particular emphasis on harnessing LLMs, enabling multilingual UI, and utilizing 100x founder tooling for scalable growth and efficiency. In the medium term, founders should consider how agents could integrate into their products, freeing them to focus on core functionality over solving problems of UX and design. But most importantly, founders need to plan with an agent-optimized internet in mind. At OV, our unique position as an accelerator enables us to guide hundreds and thousands of founders through this shift towards an agent-first reality. So what does all this mean for founders? The shift away from Web3 might feel we're abandoning a failed experiment, but nothing could be further from the truth. We believe everything built over the last decade forms the bedrock and foundations for what will allow us to move towards the post-web. The post-web is not a disruption to the existing Web3 paradigm, rather an extension or gradual evolution that incorporates Web3's principles and foundations while transitioning to an AI-enabled internet. The process of convergence serves as a transitory phase, bridging the path to the post-web. In the near term, founders will need to still focus on humans as the end users. Whilst we see some initial functionality of agents, there are still some critical building blocks, including regulation and agent empowerment, sovereignty of personhood and privacy, that need to fall into place before we'll see widespread replacement of humans by agents. In the short term, we're focusing on AI augmentation. What is changing rapidly is the founder's ability to augment their product or service with AI. There are a few areas where AI augmentation can provide a useful uplift. The concept of the 100x founder means founders need to be relentless in leveraging AI to create operational efficiency and automation when building, planning, fundraising, and scaling. We have recently entered a period where it has never been easier or more capital efficient to become a founder. And we believe the next unicorns will be built by just a handful of people with a great idea, but best-in-class execution and a powerful AI toolkit. As we're seeing with the rollout of co-pilots and agents by the hyperscalers and big tech, founders can use AI to tailor user interfaces in real time with recommendations, dynamic content, and support. UX and UI, insights and analytics. Founders should leverage AI to analyze user behavior, on-chain metrics, and general market trends to make data-driven decisions and product refinement. Over time, as we move into the later stages of the process of convergence, founders will need to buy into the reality that an increasing number of activities will be outsourced to agents. In a way, there will be an unbundling of products, platforms, and services by agents. Some closing thoughts. In this chapter, we've talked about the characteristics of the post-web, the powerful convergence flywheel that's powering it, and its potential to flip the organizing principle of the internet away from the attention economy to the intention economy. But it's important to stress this won't be a nirvana. It too will have degrees of bias and bundling into new kinds of platforms, but neither of these things are inherently bad. In fact, both in moderation can deliver better outcomes for users. But we do believe because this paradigm is fundamentally oriented towards its users' needs and their sovereignty, while significantly reducing switching costs, that it will better manage these tensions to avoid repeating today's structural problems with the internet. Equally, we should assume, based on a decade of intention theory, that we can anthropomorphize that agents will organize predictably in similar ways to people. A great test of a new medium's risks is Marshall McLuhan's tetrad framework, which in part asks what happens when a paradigm is taken to its extreme. These are topics, amongst others, that we will explore in further episodes, as well as laying out the post-web, its stack, and the ultimate endgame, the computable economy. As Jason Potts, director of Blockchain Innovation Hub, puts it,
so we're entering into a digital economy, and the fundamental thing about a digital economy is everything in it is computable. All of the interactions are fundamentally computable, which means that anything that has compute capabilities can interact with anything else that has compute capabilities and behave as if they were doing economic transactions. For thousands of years, that has been limited to human interactions. We're just at the cusp of being able to massively expand the number of economic agents because of this enormous explosion of compute capability into modern economies. That's what's coming, the computable economy.
We're here to guide you through the most important phase of the internet yet. Join us to explore the post-web. Hit subscribe for further episodes, or go to postweb.io to be the first to read our in-depth report, complete with investment framework and founder's guide, to help you prepare for and exceed in the post-web.